Welcome to the China Report with your host, Joshua Philipp.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Joshua Philipp, senior investigative reporter with the Epoch Times. And today we have with us Allan dos Santos.
It's nice to be here.
Here from Brazil. If you are Brazilian, you probably know this guy. He's a well-known independent journalist with Terça Livre. Yep. And Allan, it's a real pleasure having you on.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
And so Allan is here to talk to us about how China is subjugating Latin America using drugs, using corruption, using bribes, using all kinds of underhanded methods. And Allan, I know that in addition to China, you're very familiar with the whole history of communist subversion in Latin America, not just Brazil. Also going into the Foro Sao Paulo, this communist organization working with even Hezbollah, I believe.
Yes.
Working with terrorist groups, working with drug traffickers, working with politics. And so he's here to talk to us about this whole story of what has been happening in Latin America.
Yeah, Foro Sao Paulo was created by Lula and Fidel Castro.
Lula being the former president of Brazil.
Yeah. So the former president, he started this Foro Sao Paulo to take over of the whole Latin America, together with Fidel Castro. And you have mentioned Hezbollah, and you can see that clearly because the vice president of the former president of Venezuela was a Hezbollah leader. So it's nothing hard to see or to believe.
And so Latin America has a lot of issues that people aren't generally aware of. Iran has heavy influence in Latin America. In Peru, for example, Hezbollah has an official political party. And through corruption with, of course, politicians, drugs, crime, you name it, countries like Iran, China, and even Russia have been able to get a very strong foothold in Latin America. And I would say are the hidden hands behind a lot of the problems we're seeing on the surface. So again, we have Allan here with us today to talk about that. Now, for those of you tuning in, please remember to like, subscribe, click the notification bell if you're on YouTube. Make sure you get our alerts as we go forward. We're going to start now with our news update on what's happening with the coronavirus. And so in Wuhan right now, hospitals are asking people for food supplies. You may have seen reports that 2,000 medical staff from across China went to Wuhan to go help because they were underhanded. Now they're saying that their beds are full, they have extra capacity, but they don't have food for people. They're saying they don't even have enough rice to feed people. And the Chinese Communist Party is trying to deny these claims and cover this up. The Chinese Communist Party is also taking measures to get people back to work. The economy in China is basically on a standstill. Police are allegedly being sent to help people ensure they make it to work. And some of the local businesses, like big companies, for example, are trying to offer benefits to entice people back to work. There was a leaked internal document from the propaganda arm in Hubei province. Hubei is where Wuhan is. This is the epicenter of the virus. They say in the document, now hear me out, they say that they hired 1,600 propaganda officers to go around deleting and creating posts to show a positive image in China. So in other words, positive image. They're going around and they're deleting things that are, of course, make the CCP look bad, and they're going around and creating positive propaganda. In addition to that, it says they hired 400 influencers, in other words, people who are influential in the Chinese system, to go and write commentary pieces. In other words, the propaganda arm in Hubei province hired people, influencers, to go and write 400 articles, making the CCP look good. Then they hired what's called the 50-cent army. These are like internet propagandists paid, kind of more grassroots style, but paid by the government, to go around and leave positive comments or supporting comments on these posts. And they said they also identified 600,000 reports online that they deemed sensitive. And when you're the Chinese Communist Party, sensitive means anything that makes the Communist Party look bad. Now, There's evidence also now of human transmission taking place in December of medical staff in Wuhan. You may have heard that the virus, of course, the Chinese Communist Party only responded around early January. There are now reports saying early December there was evidence of human-to-human transmission even among medical staff. The Communist Party suppressed these reports. There are also internet posts now going around in China of people saying they're buying crates of masks or buying supplies, and they're looking at them and they're saying, oh, this was actually relief goods that had been sent to Wuhan. So in other words, someone within the process of sending these relief goods into Wuhan, took them for themselves and resold them online. And of course, you may have heard some of the different reports coming out now. Now there's an interesting series of events, and I want to do a whole episode on this. I'm thinking about it, but for now, let me give a quick update. Now, there are reports saying now in China, funny enough, that scientists believe that the virus came from the Wuhan P4 lab. Now, keep in mind, in the United States, if you say that the virus came from this, laboratory that researches these exact kinds of viruses that exists in Wuhan, the P4 lab, they call you a conspiracy theorist. In China now, this rumor is being allowed to spread. Chinese scientists are coming forward and saying that's where it came from, which, if you've been following the Chinese Communist Party long enough, means that they're allowing this rumor to spread. So why are they allowing this rumor to spread at this time? Two other rumors are spreading at the same time. There's one report going around, more it appears for the conspiracy crowd, claiming that China had been developing experimenting on bioweapons at that laboratory. It was rogue scientists. Yeah, this is just the wild claim. Personally, I think it's disinformation, but I'm relaying it here. They say that they believe this was it was a bioweapon. The guy claims to be a Chinese intelligence officer. They say that a rogue agent wanted to sell the virus to the CIA. They had a big shootout, like in some Bond movie in this Wuhan marketplace. The vial falls out of his pocket dramatically, breaks on the ground, and then, of course, these brave Chinese police in their shootout with the CIA failed in their mission, and so the virus spread. That's one of the narratives they're spreading. And there's also another narrative they're spreading that says that these scientists at the Wuhan lab brought in a bunch of bats, and they were attacked by the bats, and the bats bit them and urinated on them, and then transmitted the virus to them.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, he knows how this stuff works too. And at the same time, Xi Jinping, the head of the Chinese Communist Party, came out and said lab biosafety should be treated as a national security issue. And so here we have 4 different reports coming out of China being allowed to spread, all of which point to the virus coming from this lab, which to me, in my own analysis, means that the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, very likely knows that the investigations are going to lead back to the lab very soon. Now they can't stop that from happening, the idea of things being traced back to them, but they can reframe the context of how it escaped from the lab and reframe the narrative of what type of research was taking place within the lab. In other words, they can say, oh, well, it was just a few rogue scientists. Yes, we executed them yesterday. Nothing to see here, move along. And the whole thing's gone. My analysis, at least. With that said, though, let's move into our discussion with Allan dos Santos. Again, he's an independent journalist with Terça Livre. He is from Brazil, just arrived. He's been having some interesting issues locally in Brazil, which he's here to talk to us about as well. And he's going to be talking about China's influence in Latin America, how it is subjugating countries using drugs, using bribes, using corruption, and using various other underhanded means. And he's also going to be talking with us today about what is really going on in Latin American politics behind the drugs, behind terrorist organizations being able to operate in Latin America and being involved in the drug trade. Countries like Iran, China, and Russia being involved in these things and all the other problems that the whole region is facing. And so, Allan, real pleasure having you with us.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me just add something before all. While you were mentioning the Communist Party was hiring 400 people to make up the situation in China. In Brazil, we have the same situation with the Workers' Party. The third most viewed video in my YouTube channel is a video they took from the internet. They erased, deleted the video, but I got the video. Someone combining and telling people how to make money with the Workers' Party on internet, just to make the situation of the Workers' Party better than the real situation. So it's nothing new.
So if you were, if you're a Brazilian watching, you probably know Allan. But if you're not, Allan is a very well-known independent journalist in Brazil. Of all the different journalists in Brazil, he was the one who was allowed to interview Bolsonaro, the president of Brazil. He's one of the only trusted journalists in Brazil. And he's been, I'd say, viciously attacked because of this, because of the infrastructure, the media infrastructure that exists there, which is opposed to the current leadership. The situation there is very unique, and we're seeing very few legitimate reports coming out about it. Allan is one of the only independent and honest journalists who's been covering these things.
Yeah, there are lots of Twitter profiles and people talking the truth, but Terça Livre became very big. And of course, the media in Brazil has a very difficult situation in comparison with the United States, for example, because most of the incoming money from the media in Brazil used to come from the government, because the government paid for them, like advertising or something like that, and they got lots of money with this. So we didn't want this situation too. We wanted just to be funded by our audience. That's the first thing they really hate us, because we do not use government money to shoot our videos or go live. And of course, our criticism is against their lies. And every lie they say, few days or a few hours after, we are able to unveil this situation, the real situation. And of course, people are sick of this fake news media, because they lie every day. They are not ashamed. They are not shameful of this situation. They speak the lie. They talk the lie. No matter how much you unmask them, they keep saying they are saying the truth. But people are not stupid. It's something that you can see of yourself. You can see with your own eyes.
Yeah, so very similar to the situation here in many regards, some of the issues they're facing, which is, it's interesting to put things in context, that some of the same tactics that we're seeing used in the United States are being used in other countries, Brazil being a case study of this. And
so since the election, they said Bolsonaro wouldn't win at all. The same situation with Trump, right? And when you would cover Bolsonaro just arriving at the airport, that looked like a football game. I'm not kidding. It's too many people just wanted to see him, and they kept saying at the time, Bolsonaro is not going to win because the other candidates can beat him fast and easy. But that didn't happen. Bolsonaro took the office, and then since January 1st, they started to keep the narrative they used on the election. So the whole year 2019, Bolsonaro was accused about many lies. Bolsonaro was accused by something that he didn't do at all. But that didn't work. People were supporting Bolsonaro more and more, and the social media became his first source. And now they are trying to use Twitter, Facebook, Instagram as a weapon to censorize us, to criminalize our opinion. It's weird because on Twitter you can see pornography, You can see apology. You can see people promoting criminals, even the narcos.
Yeah, no, there's drug cartels.
Even the drug dealers, they have Twitter account.
Are they public about their crimes too?
Yeah, I'm not kidding. But if you criticize the politicians, and then you should be banned from the social media. The thing I keep asking all my audience, why can't I criticize a politician and someone can just promote pornography? I mean, what is the problem here? There is any crime you could criticize me? No, there is not. So they started a commission inside the Congress to investigate fake news, to try to do something.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. So, and then they invited me to go there because they said I rent a car and I moved to Brasilia, to the capital. So they started to say that Bolsonaro was paying my house, my car, and all my bills. They said that. And then I went to this commission at the Congress, and I proved that I paid everything I use. And this money comes from my audience and not from the government. Of course, they didn't like it because people loved my speech at the Congress talking about fake news. I showed to a leader of the Workers' Party documents from the Communist Party in Russia saying how do you act in a legal and illegal way.
So in other words, you not only went up there and proved you were not fake news, but you exposed the fake news and showed how media in Brazil were working with the Workers' Party, the Communist Workers' Party, and coordinating with Russia on their propaganda.
Yes. So, and after that, that was shameful for them. And after that, my social media became more and more influenced. And now they are trying to create a crime to investigate me. After that, the Supreme Court went with a paper at my door saying that I should go there, and there is like an inquiry. But I asked my lawyer to see the papers. What kind of inquiry is this? I mean, there is any crime? I will be testimony against or in favor of someone. I have been investigated. My lawyers could not access the papers, and that goes against San Jose is a tract. I think is that way it's saying in English. It's a human rights sign that Brazil signed in San Jose in Costa Rica. So it's against human rights. The lawyer did not be allowed to see the paper.
So in other words, the Brazilian government, not necessarily Bolsonaro, but these other politicians are doing things to combat what they're calling fake news, mainly because you've been criticizing them, despite the fact that you went to not only are you not fake news, not only were their claims against you false, but that the media criticizing you are actually have public documents or leaked documents showing coordination with the Workers' Party, showing coordination with Russia. And so you went...
and also North Korea.
And North Korea. And so,
because Brazil paid the port in Cuba where North Korea and Russia trade weapons.
I'll have to talk to you about that some more.
Yeah.
But why don't we jump into the topic now, which is how the Chinese Communist Party is using various underhanded methods to subjugate different countries in Latin America. Because I know you were one of the few journalists in Latin America to really call this out. Because a lot of politicians, including Bolsonaro coming in, I think he generally opposes this, but some of the local politicians don't really understand it.
At all.
Sometimes they don't know what they're getting themselves into, it seems. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's very accurate. And there is a point very important to say the Communist Party, they openly supported one of the candidates.
The Chinese Communist Party?
Yeah, one of the candidates, Ciro Gomes.
They openly supported him?
Yeah, they openly supported him. And then Bolsonaro won, and they were afraid of Bolsonaro. And now they are saying that Bolsonaro is a good guy, and they want just invest money in Brazil. They want,
and of course, that's how the Chinese Communist Party operates. That they'll move with the tides. They'll subvert the processes in motion. They don't try to change the processes from the start. They alter the trajectory of the processes.
And the worst situation happened. Lots of politicians that said that they will be with Bolsonaro forever, I will support you, I will help you. The same party of Bolsonaro, they started to allow Huawei to...
Huawei, Chinese telecom company,
So they started to allow Huawei to control the cameras on cities. And also, Bolsonaro went to China in a diplomatic travel. And now China is buying everything in Brazil. And probably 5G it will be a big problem for us. Not because of the Huawei in itself, because Huawei is not running to do 5G in Brazil. The problem is the whole companies in Brazil who wants to be allowed to build 5G in Brazil, they are based on Huawei.
And so let me explain why that matters. The Chinese Communist Party is part of its One Belt, One Road initiative, part of its China 2025 initiative, right?
Yeah.
It's going abroad into other countries, and it is exporting its form of government. This is it exporting the China model. And now, in the eyes of the Chinese Communist Party, there are two different models for world government. There's the US-led model, which has some respect for human rights, which respects, say, the ability of individuals to have basic rights, and they can, choose their leaders, that governments should treat them in a certain way that does not overstep the boundaries of abuse. Criticize it as you want. It does have some standards. Or you're going to be sanctioned. When it comes to the Chinese Communist Party, they say, do whatever you want to your citizens. We will not criticize you. We will not question it. We will still work with you. We will still trade with you, which is why when countries like Iran and North Korea get sanctioned by the United States, China continues to trade with them. And which is also why when China goes abroad into countries, in Latin America, for example, through the Foro Sao Paulo, which was the communist organization that helped lead this entire pink revolution that swept Latin America with socialist and near-communist governments, China has worked very closely with them. Now, when it goes in and builds this infrastructure through the One Belt, One Road initiative, they install technological infrastructure, mainly through Huawei and through other companies, that includes things like surveillance camera systems, and which includes technologies that would allow the same type of high-tech tyranny that exists in China, under systems like the social credit system. There are many countries in Latin America and in Africa, and even, for example, Darwin, Australia, where China has been able to install these types of systems and where the governments have started using, if not fully, then at least parts of these systems. And so this is very concerning when it comes to Brazil.
It is, because Brazil is a land that didn't show the world his capability yet. We have been running in a very difficult way in our democracy, and Brazil can grow in agriculture, Brazil can grow in industry, in every way Brazil can go high. And now Brazil is showing the world that we want free market for the first time, right? For the first time, we really want free market in our country, and also free trade.
And Bolsonaro was sort of a symbol of that.
Yes, Bolsonaro is bringing that to us with his ministers. And now, of course, China knows that we cannot fight against them about trade, all this stuff, because we are not the United States. We are a poor country. So we need investors. But the problem is, it is worth to do investment in China or allow China to do investment in Brazil and also sell our freedom. So that's the point.
Well, and to give a bit of context to this, one of the big criticisms that different countries such as Sri Lanka, and others have made about China's One Belt, One Road initiative is that when they go to countries, they get them into debt traps. They offer to build this infrastructure, they do the loans in a way where the countries very likely cannot pay back the loans. And when they default on the loans, China gains control of the infrastructure and natural resources of those countries and maintains oftentimes control over that infrastructure. China then controls the main systems at the base of the economies that make the countries function and that give them also stronger political power within those countries. And then the countries also become indebted to China. And so this is one of the serious issues we have when it comes to this. We've heard many reports, which I've reported and talked about as well, that when China goes into countries, you might actually watch a video we had recently about China going into Guyana, near the northern tip of South America, where the GDP, the country's GDP is projected to rise by about 98% because they just found massive stores of offshore oil. It is going to become one of the largest oil producers in the region, and China has gone in and basically taken over that industry. There's a lot of corruption involved with it.
Like what they are doing in Venezuela, for example.
Yeah, well,
China is supporting Venezuela together with Russia.
Well, and that's important too, because not only are they doing that, but they're preventing U.S. intervention. They're preventing this change of power. In other words, they're stopping a change of hands in Venezuela that would see an end to the current socialist government. They're preventing an end to this thing that the people in Venezuela want, and they're also preventing U.S. Action to help in that process.
They prevented to give food to Venezuela people. It's weird. We cannot, Brazil, Colombia, and the United States, it's not allowed to give food to Venezuela people. So what's happening? People are leaving Venezuela and going to Colombia and Brazil. And how can we know who's coming? It's a criminal, it's a communist agent, or it's just a poor person, poor citizen. This is a very hard situation, and we are afraid of that. Brazil is trying to help in every way, but it's, of course, there is a red light telling us, look, be careful, because you could bring criminals to Brazil or agents. Because it's funny, because when the president was Dilma Rousseff, our former president, who suffered the impeachment, the path of the Venezuela immigrants was inside the states who was controlled by the Communist Party.
Interesting. Now, before we go on, actually, you had mentioned something very interesting, which I'd like to know more about it, because I haven't heard about it. You mentioned that Russia and North Korea were trading firearms.
Yeah, Cuba and North Korea.
Tell me about
that. Yeah, there was a...
Sorry, Cuba and North Korea, not Russia and North Korea.
Yeah, there was a ship, was capped in Panama, I guess. They were trading weapons. If these weapons would be nuclear weapons, they would go against a UN sanction. So the news said there were not nuclear weapons. But the problem is, who say that? The minister of Cuba and the commandant, is how to say that in the guy who's controlling the ship.
Oh, the captain.
The captain.
The ship's captain.
Yeah, the ship's captain.
So in other words, the smuggler and the politician may be allowing the operations, claim there's nothing to see here.
But there is a very interesting point. The captain, when he was capped, he tried to suicide. So how can you try to suicide if everything is fine? That's my question. And then I said, that was a nuclear weapon. Because if the captain tried to suicide, it's something against the law, and it's something against UN sanctions. And then I said that in Brazil, they posted, Allan did another fake news saying there were nuclear weapons over there. But of course, we have no report saying nuclear weapon. But why the captain tried to suicide if in Russia and North Korea were trading weapons? And
Cuba, North Korea, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, well, and actually, that's a very good point, because if it were normal weapons, they wouldn't need to do it like that. The Norinco, the Chinese arms manufacturer, regularly sells firearms to all these different countries. Norinco arms, they sell them through Latin America. A lot of the cartels use Norinco weapons. There have been many weapons caches from that. There's a lot of fake news claiming that the drug cartels get their weapons from the United States. That was based on one analysis of one weapons cache a long time ago. That is not an accurate story, but it is the one that a lot of media still push out. The majority of firearms in Latin America and used by the cartels come from China, one of the biggest suppliers being Norinco. Not only that, but they're also one of the biggest suppliers of precursor chemicals for the drugs in Latin America. And not only that, but you also have Hezbollah, in other words, terrorist organizations sponsored by Iran, doing a lot of the drug trade in Latin America. Where do the drugs come from then? Well, they come from terrorists, and they come from China. And they're being used locally to create corruption, to pollute the political environment there, and to poison the United States. And so why don't we talk now about drugs and the way this whole system works, because of course this is a big issue.
It is funny. I'm not allowed to go to Bolivia anymore because one of my journalists...
You're not allowed to go to Bolivia?
No, yeah, I cannot. I cannot. I'm afraid of, to be honest, because one of our journalists made a lot of report what was going on in Bolivia. And Pedro Montenegro was a drug dealer. He was wanted for the federal police in Brazil. He was in Bolivia, paid Evo Morales and one of the judge of the Supreme Court. And the judge of the Supreme Court was recording videos like a campaign for Evo Morales inside Pedro Montenegro's house. We reported that in Brazil. We were the only one media who spoke about it there. So the result was clear, Evo Morales fall. So Evo Morales failed, and now he's not in Bolivia anymore, but I'm pretty sure the drug dealers don't want me there because of that. And also, our minister, Sérgio Moro, who was a judge who put the former president Lula da Silva in jail, he is supporting the federal police to get all the drugs, all the path drugs in the whole country. So we have the highest rate of drugs that were capped by the government in Brazil right now. So this is due to Sérgio Moro. And because of that, the drug dealers, they are losing money. They are losing money with Bolsonaro, they are losing money with Sérgio Moro. So they are totally desperate. And also we have the lowest rate of death in Brazil since 2007, I guess. So what's really going on in Brazil? We used to have 60,000 people dying per year.
In other words, about close to the number of American deaths in the entire Vietnam War, dying every year in Brazil.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Bolsonaro changed it totally. The drugs are not going to the cities at the same rate used to be with the Workers' Party. And the criminals are afraid of the cops right now because this is a long talk, I will try to make it short. In a different way of the United States, if a cop shoot a criminal, he would answer to the justice, no matter what was happening. I mean, if the guy was with a strong weapon shooting people, if he shoot the criminal, he should go to the judge and explain why he did it, okay? So here in America, in some states, the cops are allowed to shoot first. In Brazil, you never are allowed to shoot first. You need to shoot after the criminal. Bolsonaro is trying to change it. And the cops are getting more confident to fight against the criminals. That also is helping our country. But the media use these headlines. The police officer killed, but they didn't say criminal, a suspect. But How can a person be a suspect if this person is with a strong weapon and killing people on the street? It's not a suspect, it's a criminal. But they don't put it on the headlines.
In other words, eliminating the context of an incident in order to frame a narrative for people that manipulates them emotionally.
Yeah, that's what they do. And Bolsonaro criticized these headlines. He keeps saying, "Why are you guys working against Brazil? It's your country. I'm just leading this country for a couple years, but this is your country. I want to fight against the criminals." And also, we see clearly that the Workers' Party didn't get money from these drug dealers as much as before. So they need to go, they need to look forward to another source, and this is China. This is totally China. China is the source money that can support the communists in Brazil, because the money they took from the government is not going out anymore. So Foro de São Paulo took lots of money from a national bank in Brazil, BNDES. They are not taking money from this bank anymore. Drug dealers are in trouble, thanks God. And now they need to look forward to another source money. And this is China. This is totally China. So now China is not speaking openly that they will support the Workers' Party or the party of Ciro Gomes, but they are helping social democrats that they say, we are not communists, we are social democrats, we are not leftists, we are just, social democrats. The PSDB party in Brazil, the Social Democratic Party of Brazil, they are getting help from the China government. So João Doria...
Openly?
Openly. So João Doria, who is a governor of São Paulo, he went to China 3 or 2 times a year just to shake hands, and we closed the deal for São Paulo with these Chinese investors. This is pretty nice. And when we say, oh, okay, you are making deal with the communists, and they say, no, China is not communist. China is a capitalist, there is a capitalism there. We have free market, free trade, but of course it is a lie. And now Bolsonaro, as a president, he cannot say that openly, that he will fight against China. He said that before the election. Now he needs to be more diplomatic, and I agree with that, because who should do that should be the congressman and etc. But this is the hard situation for us. We need investment from other countries who respect freedom. And Trump is helping that, but not enough, to be honest. I would like to have more and more help from the United States. But of course, there is an election year here going on, right?
Yeah, 2020, yeah.
Yeah, and no one in America would love to hear about Brazil. They want to hear about America, and I understand that. But Brazil needs support from free countries like America. And Bolsonaro needed it too. And that's the point. Brazil needs money. And the money will come from China or the United States. So,
and strategically, this is how the Chinese Communist Party views it. Again, I talked about the U.S. model versus the China model. This is how they view this global conflict right now.
Yeah, and BRICS. They are familiar with BRICS?
Well, maybe explain it. It's kind of like the Soviet bloc of Latin America, essentially.
Yeah,
they explain it to them. Yeah.
They want to destroy the dollar bill. They want to destroy the American money.
Well, why don't you tell our audience what BRICS is?
So BRICS, it's Brazil, South Africa, Russia, China, and India. So these 5 countries, they have a deal who was made during the Workers' Party government. They want to make this deal to get closer to each other in all the ways you can imagine. So industry, currency, and all that stuff. They want to destroy the American dollar power right now. So they try to make these BRICS to get stronger enough to block United States. After they control Europe, with gas, all that stuff.
Yeah, which is public reporting that Russia was controlling a lot of Europe through control of natural gas and through energy. Yeah.
So Russia, China knows very well the Brazilian potential to destroy the dollar currency, right? But also we have a power to put American stronger enough to destroy what is going on in China. So that's the point. Bolsonaro won in Brazil. They didn't expect that. And also in India, the prime minister was the first politic who supported Trump. So now we have these two strong countries against Russia and China.
In other words, BRICS has been destabilized because of
Totally.
that. Which means, and now taken into broader context, we talked about Venezuela. One of the reasons why Russia and China are there right now, trying to prevent this change in power that the people on the ground want, and also taking actions to prevent U.S. intervention, is because China and Russia built a lot of the infrastructure there. They have tons and tons of money in Venezuela, and they're concerned that if there is a change of power, that they will lose that control. They will lose all the things they have built, and they're not wanting to do that. Now think about what it means if BRICS is destabilized. Think about what it means if Brazil is lost.
There would be not a collapse, but it's kind of a collapse for China and Russia. That's the truth. They know very well if Brazil gets stronger, Brazil would have more American investors, and we could be able to give our back to China.
And not only that, but if Venezuela were to change, and if Brazil were to also become prosperous and get rid of a lot of the problems they have there, mainly caused by drugs and of course, you mentioned 60,000 deaths a year. It's a literal war zone, and the police have had their hands tied behind their backs, basically.
But in 1 year, Bolsonaro gets the lowest rate of death.
Lowest murder rate since 2007, yeah. And so basically, Brazil was one of the main countries that helped flip Latin America, that helped turn Latin America into hardcore socialist regimes. That was mainly done through the Foro Sao Paulo, which was between Brazil and Cuba, if I'm right.
Yeah, I don't want to sound exaggerated, but if you see the world map, there are few countries who want to change the situation. So we can mention United States, Brazil, Hungary, Poland, Italy, United Kingdom, India. Who else? Maybe. Okay, but we could use these 7 countries who is in the hand of right wing. We can see that clearly. This is an alarm for the Communist Party in China, because they wanted to conquer Europe, they want to conquer Africa, they want to conquer South America. In Africa, they have free way to go because there is no one blocking them there. In Europe, the Brexit, it's not helping them. So it's clearly an alarm for them. In Brazil, with Bolsonaro win, this is a kind of alarm too. So Brazil is a very precious piece in this chess. And it's not a pawn, it's like a bishop or a horse, or even the tower in this chess game. I do believe that Bolsonaro is doing something very great for Brazil and great for the whole world. And until the end of the year, we are going to have some change who will help Bolsonaro a lot. So the president of the Supreme Court is going to change at the end of the year. And also the chairman of the Senate and the Congress is going to change too. So Bolsonaro will be able to nominate another Supreme Court minister next year, and that is going to help us to have a very stable judiciary, because the main problem right now, it's not the executive, The main problem right now is the Congress, the legislative, and the judiciary. So if we gonna have a more balanced situation in our judiciary, in our legislative, I do believe that Brazil is going to change a lot in few years.
And now for a bit more context in terms of how China fits into this. One of the Chinese Communist Party's main strategies against the United States is a Maoist era strategy called surround the city with the countryside. In other words, you conquer a country by putting rings around it and then moving in slowly. The Soviets had something similar called the salami strategy. In the South China Sea, the Chinese Communist Party has developed its, quote, cabbage strategy. I know those are kind of funny sounding names. But again, it's this Maoist era strategy. Surround the city with the countrysides. You don't immediately target the thing you want to target. You target the periphery and then move in slowly towards the target. You cut it off step by step. Now, when it comes to how they're working the political system in these countries, we mentioned that they have Hezbollah doing a lot of the drug trade. We mentioned that here's how it works. Drugs are useful in terms of creating political corruption, in terms of creating instability, and in terms of creating funds.
And wash money too.
Yeah, money laundering.
Money laundering, okay.
Yeah. So
I just translated.
No, it's cool. And so China is one of the main suppliers of the precursor chemicals for a lot of the drugs, and it's also the main supplier of the synthetic drugs, like fentanyl and these types of things. Now, when Hezbollah go into these countries, right, they create crime on the ground. The criminals threaten police, they threaten judges, they destabilize the system, and they begin bribing politicians, first through fear for their family, saying, okay, if I don't take this money, I could take this money and I'll be okay, and they're going to keep doing what they're going to do anyways, or I don't take it, they kill me, they kill my family, and then they get another politician in who's going to take the money. And so a lot of politicians fold, they take the money. Once they take the money, that creates a smoother track for the drug cartels to operate. It creates a stronger control of countries like China and regimes, I'd say, terrorist organizations like Hezbollah, as they gain deeper and deeper control within the systems. At the same time, they can use that to create more pathways. If they start getting politicians in their pockets, they can use them for other things, such as signing deals, signing political deals, signing things with the One Belt, One Road initiative. And for those of you who saw our episode on Guyana, we mentioned that one of the ways that the Chinese Communist Party operates when they go into these countries is they'll set aside around 5% of their foreign budget for bribery. If they go into a country with $20 million to sign a deal, 1 million of that is going to be to bribe the politician to make them sign the deal.
Easily.
And so, I mean, yeah, they're already corrupt. They're already involved with the criminal underworld. What's signing a deal that is going to build infrastructure in the country that they know is going to hurt the country in the long run? It means nothing to them. And so this is what you have happening across the board in Latin America. And this is what's behind a lot of the drugs coming into the United States. And if we go back and even read some of the original plans around bringing drugs into the United States, books like Red Cocaine by Joseph Douglas, for example.
That's an amazing book.
Yeah, you're familiar with it?
Oh, yeah.
This goes into old communist strategies, Soviet Union, China, learning from the Opium Wars, and Cuba, to poison the United States, to destabilize the United States, to destroy the youth of the United States. This was what they were doing, openly, and still doing. And we can see it now with China supplying the firearms to the drug cartels. We can see it with the corruption. We can see it with Hezbollah being allowed to operate there with very little U.S. intervention. We can see it with China creating this, openly getting into the politics of countries like Brazil, which you were mentioning. We can see it across the board, and it's being allowed to happen. And again, this ties into this idea of surrounding the city with the countryside. If America is the focus, then Latin America needs to be a target in order to move the rings in ever slowly. And Allan, I know we also should talk, we're running out of time, but we should talk briefly about the Foro ao Sao Paulo, because of course this is the organization created with groups like, I believe, FARC,
Yes, FARC.
With Hezbollah, with all the different socialist governments across Latin America, and with involvement, from what I understand, of China as well.
Sure,
this is one of the main institutions that has been used to do a lot of this work.
China, I do believe China wants to do a different path from the Foro de São Paulo, because we need to go back to 1916, I think, when the Communist Party just in Russia was born, because there were a dispute between two different groups in Russia, and one group would be internationalized, another group should be nationalized. So the communists wanted to do two different paths, and of course Lenin,
yes.
Yeah, Lenin got the direction where Russia was going. And we know very well that Stalin wouldn't help Mao Zedong in China. So that's why Mao Zedong wanted to also beat Stalin and take the Communist Party over in the whole world.
Yeah, well, there was a conflict between Mao Zedong and Stalin over who would be in control of the global communist revolution. Now they work together closely regardless of this.
Yeah, of course.
But there was a lot of internal fighting over who was the one in charge.
And this is a very interesting point, because what is going on right now in Foro de São Paulo is exactly the same situation. They will help each other in regards of communism, but who is going to be in charge, right? And the situation that we see clearly is that the communists, the root, the real communist speech is, of course, against gay people, right? They are very racist, and they do not support minorities at all, right? But we see very well, and it's a different strategy using Gramsci, where they could take these minorities and take this narrative of a racist or LGBT and so forth against the West civilization. And now there is a very interesting, not a conflict, but a kind of a conflict. What kind of a communism is gonna lead the whole world? The communism that talks about minorities, talk about the poor, or the communists who will say openly, let us kill the bourgeois and use the people from the countries.
Well, that's accurate even here in the United States. In fact, the Trotskyites and the Stalinists now are coming out against the progressives because they believe that the socialist movement has lost its sight of class struggle by focusing too much on identity politics.
So, and then for me, I can be wrong, but for me, it's clear. China wants to take this narrative, this new narrative of the globalists, minorities, racism, odd stuff, and they will allow the other communists who will talk about, let us take a weapon and kill the bourgeois, right? Let us kill the capitalism. China will not say that. China will just say, we do not want to kill capitalism, we do not want to kill your freedom, but let me take over of all your facilities, let me build construction in your country.
Yeah, let me seize the means of production from you.
Yeah, that's it. And I want to have your technology because, of course, the company is Chinese, but it's not connected to the Chinese government. That's what they say all the time. So what I believe is that the Foro de São Paulo will keep using this narrative just like a diversion. Like we are the real communism. Like do not fight against China. We are the communists you want to fight. And while they are doing that, China will take over of Brazil and South America and all the countries. I do believe they are using this Foro de São Paulo right now because they're losing money, right? Foro de São Paulo is losing money. So look at us and forget about China. I do believe they are going to do that, just to make China be able to buy everything they want in Brazil.
And this is a big deal, and I'd agree as well, that you have every country has its localized struggle. Every country has its localized narratives being used by the, say, communist or socialist movements. And in fact, even in Brazil, I understand you guys have this whole race narrative propping up, which didn't really exist in the past, because who'd think you guys would have race narratives in Latin America? But they're using that. They're using that there now too. And so you have localized communist movements using various narratives to try to convince people to move along their paths. But beneath the current, the Chinese Communist Party is the largest, most centralized, and most powerful movement going around the world, making these deals, seizing control of factories and natural resources, corrupting politics, and gaining control quietly to institute a very real system of communism under the guise of capitalism.
Right now, China is just saying, we do not want any contact with these people. We just want to invest in your country. And I do believe that's a very strong to mask, because it's easier when you see someone with the communist flag talking about kill the bourgeois and all the communist narrative. It's hard when you see Chinese government and Chinese companies, mainly Chinese companies, buying everything and also being able from the government to do something in certain ministries. For example, in economy, let's say agriculture, right? The government will allow some company to do some works. They will hire this company. The government will do that. And China is getting all of this. I don't know how to say in English how it works, because it's different. In a socialist country like Brazil, the government pay private company to do something. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to explain that.
Just say it like that, yeah.
Yeah. But there is like a competition between the companies, and they need to fulfill lots of requirements. And the Chinese companies are fulfilling all these requirements more than other companies because they are huge, have money, they have structure and all that stuff. And now they are going to this path more than, openly, they are going to support for São Paulo, for example.
I see, well, very concerning situation. So again, we have with us Allan dos Santos. He's with Terça Livre. He's from Brazil, talking with us about what's happening there. I think we're out of time, but Allan, we'll have to get you on again sometime.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Real pleasure. And for those of you tuning in at home, please remember to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell if you're on YouTube. We really need your support. Let other people know about this channel. We're going to be covering the coronavirus, breaking news daily. Please tune in 10 a.m. Monday through Friday. Again, I'm Joshua Philipp, senior investigative reporter with the Epoch Times. This is the China Report. Thanks again.